Billy Bat Productions presents The Hermanists, a satire show that remixes feminist history into a twisted comedy series. Some episodes contain adult content and strong language, just like in your daily life. This series contains dangerous ideas, possibilities, and a complete rewriting of history, just like in your daily life. Welcome to The Hermanists!
The truth.
Nothing is
true. Everything is broken.
The first thing I do in the morning is brush my teeth and
We're
sharpen my
all
toes.
doomed.
Did you join the circus? We're all doomed.
Calm down, woman.
Burn it down!
Burn it down! It's time for another episode of He Said, She Said, with your host, Wayne Pickles.
Welcome to the longest-running game show in history. You know how it works. We describe a random subject, whether it's a person, place, event, or thing, and we give points to whoever has the best response. It's like watching a documentary with your spouse. On tonight's team, we have on my right Jack and on my left his wife Bonnie. And just before we begin, we want to thank you for all your emails and letters concerning the show's subject matter. We have heard you. And in response, we have made a change and chosen tonight's subject, a woman. Happy? On now with the show, and may the best man win. Lucy, Lady Houston, winning the Battle of Britain, the mother savior of the Spitfire by giving birth to its predecessor, the Supermarine Seaplane. She put the punk in rock. She put the spit in Spitfire. She was the fireball in politics, taking on the establishment. She rose from a showgirl at 11 years old to become Britain's second richest woman. She was a suffragette and political conservative. Trying to have it both ways, just like a woman. Point to Jack! They called her eccentric. Born in a vacuum cleaner bag with the rest of London's hairballs back in 1857, Fanny Lucy Radmal was born without choices, nor an avenue to education. At 11, she was a showgirl.
She was a child.
No one forced her. Point Jack! By 16, she had a lover twice her age, one of the heirs to the Bass Brewery. That's normal.
Twice her age?
It was common back then.
That doesn't make it
Point
right.
Jack! And she moved to Paris to learn the fine arts of a hostess skilled in acquiring money from men. When her lover died 10 years later, he bequeathed to her £6,000 a year, or more than $700,000 in 2020 money. Whore.
Or maybe her sexuality wasn't as precious as men would have her think.
That's a close one. Judges? Point Wayne.
Could I get an explanation? The audience just cheered.
No! And Fanny never asked for permission, acceptance, or equality. She took it, so she was thus labeled an eccentric. After her lover died, she went on to marry a baronet, then separated and divorced in short order after learning of his affairs. You can't have it both ways, ladies.
She knew what she was doing.
Point! Bonnie! In 1901, she married George Lord Byron. Not that Lord Byron, but in the same family, and became a lady. She was around 44 years old at this time and hitting her stride. Byron was a bankrupt drunk known as Red-Nosed George, but did she care? Nope. She paid off his debts and became a lady with status. So she slept her way to the top.
Oh, honey, there's no sleeping in a life like that.
Point Bunny! During the 16-year marriage with Drunky George, she took up a new health regime, giving up tea, coffee, butter, white bread, bacon, meat, and drinking. She financed the bail of one Emmeline Pankhurst.
That's nothing. We had to fish Amanda out of the East River once. She was so drunk. But still friends.
Point Bonnie! And the bail of many of the suffragettes, but later pulled out of the feminist WSPU when they adopted their violent methods. Now known as Lady Lucy the Eccentric, believed,
as long as you adopt amusing methods, you advertise the cause and steadily gain sympathy from all classes.
But nonetheless, she continued to fundraise for the movement and joined the new Constitutional Society for Women's Suffrage. With the advent of World War I, Lady Lucy was a strong advocate for the war effort and those who fought in it. She sent the troops much-needed essentials like matches and socks. She set up a rest home for Western frontline nurses called the Bluebird's Nest. She also became known for her prophetic powers. What's
Women's intuition.
Point Bonnie? After the war, she was one of the first 5 recipients of the newly created appointment Dame of the British Empire for her advocacy during the war. Then, after the death of Lord Byron, she suffered from a well-earned bout of depression and would ride around Hampstead Heath in her carriage on the lookout for communists and Prussians. By now, she was in her early 60s, and she became obsessed with what she believed to be the communist infiltration into Britain and frustrated with the government for not taking a harder stance toward this threat. So she was just barky mad.
No, just ahead of her time.
Point Bonnie! Then, one day, she got out of her carriage, dusted the pork rinds off of her dress, and knew exactly what she had to do. In 1924, she married one of the wealthiest bachelors she could find, and this one was a gem. A ruthless, misogynistic, surly ship owner named Houston. They moved to Jersey and lived in one of his yachts to avoid taxes. 2 years later, he was dead. But not before proclaiming her wonderful intuition. He declared on 2 occasions, "Saved my life," when the doctors despaired of it. He left her £5.5 million, or about $90 million in 2020 money. And now, as the second wealthiest woman in all of the Britain's empire, she could compete with the men on equal footing. First, she negotiated with the Chancellor Exchequer, one Winston Churchill, to settle their tax debt down to $1.6 million. But she also took a shine to him, too. Uh-oh, look out, Winston. Here comes Lady Lucy.
She's as rich as Croesus. She doesn't need men anymore.
No points in that round. Moving on. But Lady Lucy believed the government to be weak in its defenses, especially in its air defenses. And she took a special kind of hate for the Prime Minister MacDonald of the Labour government. By this time, Britain and the world were dealing with an epic economic meltdown. Sounds like Bonnie's monthly Diet Watchers weigh-in.
He cries during sex.
Okay, point Bonnie. So, the government had to rein in its spending. Looking around, Lady Lucy needed to find what would protect her beloved London, and she found it in the Schneider Cup. Between 1913 and 1931, there was the Schneider Cup, an air race between nations to reward technical advances in civil aviation, and this was her in. She found out that McDonald's government had pulled the funding for the Royal Aero Club and forbade the RAF involvement in the Cup. That was enough to put her on the greatest crusade as she funded $100,000, or about $1.6 million in today's money, to the Royal Aero Club to develop the supermarine seaplane. I slept with your cousin.
How do you think I knew about the crying?
Oh, point Bonnie. This plane, the S-6B Vickers Supermarine with its Rolls-Royce engine, became the high-speed interceptor, the Spitfire. This aircraft, the Hurricane, and other variants all became the backbone of the RAF Fighter Command. The Battle of Britain, fought in the air, as she predicted, was the first major defeat of Germany in World War II. Maybe if you weren't such a prude.
Your children hate you.
And she wasn't done there. In 1932, after she won the race, she then offered the government another $200,000 to reinforce the Army and the Navy. But McDonald was like, no thanks, lady, but we're good.
When are you going to pay back that $20,000 you owe my father?
When hell freezes over. So she strung up a giant sign on her yacht that read, "Down with McDonald, the traitor," and sent him a telegram that said, "I alone have dared to point out the dire need for air defense of London. You have muzzled others who have deplored the shameful neglect. You have treated my patriotic gesture with contempt such as no other government would have been guilty of toward a patriot. I got that loan for us."
Oh, the us that goes on golfing trips? That us?
It's business. When she bought the newspaper The Saturday Review in 1933, when she was 76 years old, and used it to hound and push out what she saw was weak leaders and push forward Lloyd George and her old friend Winston Churchill. By 1936, after the abdication of Edward from the throne, which she now saw as the result of a sinister Moscow forces, she basically lost the will to live and stopped eating. She died of a heart attack on December 29th. It is said that her last words were,
It's time for me to sleep. And a damned long sleep it's going to be.
I'll trade you the loan for a divorce, full visitation, no support. I don't care. I want out. Before you pull us all down with you.
Deal. 10 points to Bonnie, and congratulations to this week's winner.
The Hermanists is a Billy Bat production starring Nina Greeley and Sailor Billings. Music by John Bartman from Free Music Archive and sound effects from freesound.org. Thank you for listening. And if the mood strikes you, please like and review.
God,
I'm probably going to have to
that's a hard one. You had a lot of hard shit in there.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to
Yes,
re-record that, but shit.
I like how Bonnie gains strength.
I do too.
All right, Ranger. Yes, you're super cute.
Let me download this recording. Oh my God, for a second there, I thought it didn't record. I was like, oh, I can't go through that again.
Do that again.
Dame of the British Empire,
No. Stop. Could we hold for just a second?
Yes.
Hey, baby, I'm recording.